Welcome back, everybody, to the Yapper Quartet, featuring me, Jamal, Will, Kendall, and today we have a guest, Source, of course. Today we're going to be having a discussion about various different hip hop topics. So let's get started.
We're going to talk about the 90s versus 2010s. We're just gonna get that one out the way. So the I posted a video that I didn't even think too much of it, and then clearly it went a way that I didn't think it was gonna go. Because I said the 2010s was the best era in hip hop, and obviously people have their opinions. So we're going to talk about that, and we're also going to talk about the evolution of hip hop in general, because that's the discussion I really want to have more so than the 90s versus 2010s. But go ahead, take it away, y'all. Whoever wants to just
Okay, yeah. Hey, who want to go? Source, you're the guest. Please, what's your take?
What's my take on what Jamal said?
Yeah, what's your take, or how do you feel, or
Sure. All right. So, well, Jamal made his video, and I had to respond to it. It just had to happen. So I had to make sure first. I had to make sure that nobody thought I was attacking Jamal, like old people do to young people, or young people to old people, whatever the case may be. So I had to set it up just so, and I also, just between us, I also hit Jamal up after I posted it to make sure it wasn't anything offensive or over the top. I ain't want him looking crazy because
yeah.
even though you may think 30 people might see something, it might be 3,000, it might be 30,000, it might be 300,000. You never know these days. So I didn't want to put Jamal out there looking crazy to be attacked by a bunch of Gen Xers. So yeah, but I mean, 90s is the illest, most diverse, most quality, heavy, most authentic era of hip hop, or decade of hip hop. It's it's not really in question. I mean, I guess if you're younger, I guess I understand because it's what the time frame that the music hits you that affects how you look at it sometimes. But I'm not sure how you can get past 1990 to 1999 and think that anything could compare. Like, it's crazy to me.
Hmm. I personally think that it's a it's a era that set the standard. I don't know if it's the best. As far as like variety, I don't know if that the 90s can compete with now when it comes to that. Like now you have so many subgenres because hip hop has evolved in a point where you have these subgenres. I don't think when it comes to variety, it's even like a competition, like at that point. Like
sorry.
you can make an argument era is better off of just quality, but like variety, I don't I personally don't think that's a conversation.
You're one of them. Chris Brown is so much better than Usher type people.
Who?
You,
Me?
I can hear. I'm hearing in what you're saying. You're one of them. Chris Brown would crush Usher in a versus, and
I
you're
hate
one of
Chris
them people.
Brown. I'm not I no. I don't we had an argument in our chat of some opinions I had about Chris Brown because I said he wasn't a legend. So
Oh
no.
my gosh.
We're not going yeah.
we ain't
So
go.
you ain't trying to rehash that one, huh?
No, because that was a long argument.
I think
Stand on that one, guys, still.
I think for the 2010s, the strongest argument is the variety because you have more people putting out music, so there's more opportunity for good music to come out versus in the 90s. So it's just like for me as a person who mainly listened or who grew up on 2010s music, like I can understand the different sounds and all that stuff and why it could be considered greater than the 90s. But I do think like the quality in the 90s was different because of how competitive the nature of the albums were and things like that. So also like the influence, like even from 90s albums to now, you can still hear the influence that's being pulled from that decade. So I do think like the quality of the 90s is there, but the argument for the 2010s it's like the overall argument for the 2010s being the best is the variety and the amount of music that's coming out. You know, music comes out, you know, all the time now. It's very consistent. So I would say like that's like the strongest argument for the 2010s. And then also like Source said, like depends on what you grew up on and how you connect to that music is going to influence what decade you think is the best.
Yeah, I would say I want to agree with you, Source, but yeah, nah. I'm looking through the albums right now in comparison. Like, yeah, like you said, I agree that you guys set a standard, like a certain level that you was coming with what you had to come with. You know, you had to come with your pen, you had to come with your bars, you had to show your stuff, and you had the '90s was the point where you had to prove yourself to the audience. Whereas the 2010s is like, yo, I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm gaining my popularity off doing what I'm doing, and I'm using hip hop in my way. You know, I'm not doing it in like, oh, we got to stick to a strict line of hip hop is this way, you know, and like speaks to what Jamal and Autumn were saying about the variety of the multiple ways that hip hop is gone, the subgenres we have now. It just it outweighs the '90s. The '90s set a beautiful standard, and you could argue about the classics, the top tens, all that, but yeah, nah, we had heat. Oh my god, yeah, nah, 2010s we have absolute heat. Oh my god, yeah, we can
Okay.
go to toe. We can go to toe to toe for sure.
Okay. So when Jamal earlier was talking about the video that he made that Source responded to, I took it upon myself. I don't know why I did this. I took it upon myself to feel like, hey, I feel like I can. Short set challenged the audience. He was like, hey, if you think there are 10 albums from the 2010 to 2019 period that can compare to, or at least be in source in some sort of a competition with um, the album from 1990 to 1999, feel free to make a response video. That's what I did. I was like, I don't really know what this is going to do, but also I feel like at the same time, I was like, I feel like I can choose 10 albums that would at least have a shot. So, like a lot of people, when I made that video, were just like, Kendall, what the hell are you doing? You know, Source is going to crush you. You know, this is not like, this is going to be like a landslide or whatever. And I was like, you know what? Even if he's right, and I think he was right, even if he was, I feel like it's something to be said about the albums that are in the 2010s because you can look at um, kind of the groundbreaking sort of like innovations that were in the production. We really got to see a lot of new wave of sounds being brought in where as in the 90s you had innovation of course, but a lot of that was because the genre was still new, so of course most of everything was still going to be like innovative and groundbreaking, but you had a lot of sounds in the 2010s that just sounded they just deviated from each other. They just sounded so different from each other. So the albums that I chose, I felt like I wanted to showcase that. Like I wanted to put a Saba in there, but I also wanted to put like a DS2 or something in there because those albums are totally different, but they come from the same era.
Autumn was on your side, man. Autumn had your back.
She did.
I don't know about the rest of the world, but here's the thing though, and y'all are saying yeah, what y'all are saying is true because obviously there's more now. There's more not now, but 2010 to 2019. There's a lot more to choose from. There are a lot more artists. There's a lot more music. Even with that said, you're so just this is not a real number. I'm not saying real numbers. I'm just saying an example. I'm giving you whatever amount from 1,000. Like let's say it's 1,000 albums. It's not, but let's say it's 1,000 albums. You're giving me whatever you got from 100,000, and it's still not better. It's more. So you're saying it's more, and it's developed as far as the sound, as far as the options as far as the genres, I mean the subgenres, but none of those things makes it better. To me, none of those things makes it better, especially when I can present my project. I know I'm gonna get an A. I don't know if you're gonna get an A if you present your project. I don't know if you're gonna get an A if you present your top 20%. And I present my top 20%. They're not, I don't want to keep saying they're not comparable, but dog, come on now. Come on now. Come on
So
now.
you're saying it's basically a quality versus quantity like argument. Like you have the
100%.
quantity of the 2010s, but the quality of the 90s is still better, even though there's less quantity in the 90s.
100%. 100%. I think that's what most people, when they say that the 90s is whatever, I think because a lot of times, and it's more opportunity now, and of course, 2010 through 2019, more opportunity, more people get a chance to do what they want to do, put the music out. It was easier or is easier to put music out. With that being easier to put music out, like you don't get to choose an album by somebody nobody knows, but it's fire, but then say we have to ignore all the albums by other people that nobody knows when they're trash. Like we don't get to count the trash because it's trash. No, it's still an album that came out in 2010 through 2019, right? So if you're gonna pull us, and I'm not saying like Kendall or anybody did this. I'm just saying if you have the opportunity to pull a random album out of a million, I can come right back with two random albums out of that million from your same time frame that are trash. That are trash. Not saying that there was no trash in the 90s. I'm saying there's clearly way more. There's clearly way more, even if you just went on percentages of music that came out in that time frame in the 2000s.
I think you can do that with, I guess, every era. I think we have more access to the people who like we don't know. Like they can just put it on Spotify. Because I
Right.
think in the 90s, they still were probably having people making their CDs and selling their CDs and nobody ever heard of them. That was probably still that happened in the 2000s for sure. So
Absolutely.
I just think that top heavy, like if you do the top 20, then you can make a case for the 2000s, you can make a case for the 80s, you can make a case for any era if you just do the top 20. But when you get deeper, like we do 50 albums, I don't think like the 90s is going to like be able to like keep up. I think like the more albums you go, the less like the 90s is going to be. And I think you can make the same thing with the 2000s. The more albums, the more it's like, because the 90s got my favorite albums from the 90s. Probably my favorite three albums are from the 90s. But the more you go into it, it's like, okay, 20 for sure. 50? That's a stretch. That's my whole point is there's more albums, yes. So there's a lot more trash. But there's more great albums because the output is just crazy. And we got more genres, like subgenres. We got people like Future. We got Gucci. We got like trap. There was no trap in the 90s. Like that whole subgenre like exists now. And that's like the point. It's because of the work that they did in the 90s though. So that point is very important. Like it's because of the work that they did in the 90s that we have what we have.
Right.
But that also is why I think right now it's the best, or the 2010s, because right now,
That, you know, there are people from 2010 through 2019 time frame, age as far as what we're talking about, that would agree with the 90s more than there are people from the 90s that would agree with 2010 through 2019.
but yeah, but that's also like I don't think the people from the 90s are listening to everything that's coming out right now either though. Like the people who we talk to, I guess, like the people who love music and stuff, they're like outliers.
Right.
So I think the majority of the people aren't listening to what's coming out now. In fact, I'm feeling like I'm getting to that stage where I'm like, I don't know what this is. Like, who's this guy? I saw the leak for like the 2025 like XSL class. I'm like, my head hurt just reading the names.
Right.
I was like, Glock, what? What is that? Like, so I don't think that I think people our age are more likely to listen to the stuff from the 90s than people from the 90s to listen to the stuff that's out now.
That's true. That's true.
So
That's the natural progression.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like I'm getting to like a. I feel like I'm unk now. I'm at that point in my. It's a weird stage to get to, but because some of the stuff that comes out now, I'm like I can't do it anymore.
And you're getting to that stage in a time where there's more accessibility to the music, but there's also more accessibility to you and people disagreeing with your opinion or
Hmm.
trying to act like you are old just because you don't like what
Yeah.
is newer.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think both decades definitely have like their shining moments, and then they both have like their dull moments. And fact of the matter is like '90s albums kind of help create what's in the 2000s now, but that's just history and timeline and all that stuff, which we can't change that. But overall, I think it is more of a quality versus quantity. Like you can't really argue about the quantity because that's just a fact. 2010s has just way more output, way more opportunity, all that stuff. But I mean, you could debate the quality, but like Jamal said, like if you have top 20 albums from the 2010s and the 90s, yeah, like you probably going with the 90s, right? But like the more you go in with that, the less likely the 90s would start competing. But I think that just has a lot to do with the amount of albums as well. Because like you said, like we all said, like there's some trash albums in the 2010s, there's some trash in the 90s. Like trash is trash. So I think it is at the end of the day, it kind of does boil down to like what's your stance? Is it quality or you're talking about the quantity? But the 2010s has a lot of quality as well, though. So it's like you really can't like negate that fact. But it's one of those slippery slope type of things. But I will say I do appreciate the 2010s because it gives a pocket for everybody who likes hip hop or just people who like music in general. You're always gonna find something that you like. So I think that's definitely like the edge to the 2010s as well versus like the 90s. Like yeah, there's pockets and people you'll find stuff that you like, but now it's like there's just kind of like no way you wouldn't find anything that you don't like. Versus then it's like it might be a little hit or miss. So I think yeah, overall I think it's just both eras are great. It's just depending on what your like argument is. So is it quality or is it quantity? Whichever one you want to talk about, I guess.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but Source, you're like you said earlier, you are on the more quality side. So your stance is more if you want to stick with that 20, just say the top 20. I think like even if you want to stick with just on quality, we could still match that with the
No,
10.
you can't. But
Can
I
we have?
I welcome you to try. I welcome you to
I
try.
mean, hey, we got some close ones. We got some close ones. We got some close ones. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna act like we're blowing anybody out the water, but we got some. Like I'm just saying, what? So that's why another question I want to ask you. Like, so from the 2010s, what were you listening to, or was it just sticking to the 90s?
No, I mean, well, actually, when you get deeper into the 2010s, like if you get to the second half, probably 16 through 19, it's probably less um, when they drop, less albums when they drop that I paid attention to outside of the obvious, Paper Code.
Yeah.
I could say Drake. I haven't listened to 3 Drake albums in life from start to finish, but I can respect the fact of what Drake is, who Drake is, as far as in the music scene overall. But I am not a person that doesn't like music based on artists being younger or saying, "Oh, they don't know because they." I don't. I'm just not on that type of approach to it
Yeah,
when it comes to how people talk about younger artists or talk down about younger artists. Because I look back, I'm like, oh, I can't say my parents because my mom straight gospel. So, but people older than me would have argued, well, that ain't real music, of course, and the '70s, whatever time frame, like this is real music, this is this, this is that. It goes with the age. It goes with the age, and that age between 15 and 25. To me, it's 15 to 25 where people kind of settle in on who they're going to be in a sense, and the type of vibe that they like. And when the music is new at that time,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it kind of affects how the music hits you.
Right. Oh yeah. Okay.
But you still, you ain't got. I mean, you welcome. You are welcome, Will.
Hey,
Welcome.
Hey.
Look,
I'm looking right now. Jamal brought it up. Like we have trap. Like we have trap music too. We have variety. We have a lot of depth. Like I understand your argument of your top 20. I'm never gonna disrespect Tribe. I'm never gonna disrespect Pac or Biggie. But I'm just saying, like, you making it seem like we not even competing though. That's what's crazy. Like, don't make it seem like we're not out here. We have made hip hop number one. Y'all are the reason why. Y'all are the reason why we are where we're at. But it's evolved to being number one because of us carrying the torch. So thank you for passing it, but we are here now.
I don't even know if that's true. I'm not saying, I mean, obviously, 2010 to 2019 and up to now has pushed the needle forward. But I think we'd argue that the difference is for the global reach, a lot of the difference is them people.
True.
Them people. That's them people.
True.
And their access to the music, which automatically changes how the music is even viewed, because the same way here you go. Less people, right? 90 to 99, less music. More people, 2010 to 2019, more music, right? Black people, white people. Just because it's more people and more people say something is good, if it's way more people total, does it really matter that more? I mean, it's obviously going to be more people because it's more people total. It's way more people on this side than it is on this side. So
yeah,
that's why we have the political issues that we tend to run into, because we're always fighting a battle. Like, we need some of these people over here. If we need them people over here, if they choose not to come, we late. That's just it. Y'all know that, right?
Yeah. I would make the case that the 2000s actually expanded hip hop because of like Soulja Boy and like MySpace and all that. That era is actually, in my opinion, is what made hip hop become like take off. Because that era, you also saw, whether I like it or not, you saw Eminem really take off. You saw like more white rappers. You saw a lot of things in the early 2000s. Then you had like Soulja Boy and all that stuff took off. It became fun. It became easy access for everybody, and everybody was doing it. The 2010s is just expanded way more, but I would say the 2000s when it really like took off. Like, granted, that's when I was a kid too. So
I was gonna say that. I was gonna say, well, you hear Jamal fighting for his era more.
He had to incorporate himself right quick. He was like, well, actually.
But I mean, I feel like the 2000s honestly gets overlooked. I feel like it gets talked about like such a negative way.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
It does, but
because people associate that era with killing hip hop.
Like the snap era.
Yeah, they associate that era with killing hip hop, and you know, like, and that's that's my issue with New Yorkers, but whatever. We're not gonna do that because I'm not trying to. That's a whole different thing. But like that era gets like a lot of the blame. Like Lil Wayne, like that's when he really took off. He gets the blame. Like a lot of the blame comes from the 2000s. Even though there's some fire in the 2000s, you know what I'm saying? I could do 20 albums in the 2000s personally.
Sorry, no.
I could easily too.
I mean, I am not going to expect 2000s.
Easily. I'm not even
You ain't even listened to stuff from the 2000s. Didn't you say you
Yes,
were?
I was. Yes, I
I'm not
don't do this.
familiar
Hey,
with the
Kendall,
two.
Kendall, do not do this right now. Kendall, do not.
You literally said, "Oh, I'm not too familiar with the 2000s like that."
No, we were talking about pop. We were talking about the
We're
pop
talking
music.
pop.
Don't. That's what I'm saying. You see how niggas like to leave out context. You see how? No, nah.
He
Don't
tried to
do me
set
like
you up
that.
for failure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, don't do me like that. But nah, I got respect for the 2000s. But out of the
2000s,
three, out of the three decades,
you got Kanye's, you
yes,
got the
you got
Blueprint,
Kanye, you got Common, you
you
got
got the Blueprint and the Black Album.
absolutely,
You got the Cool, you got Slum Village,
absolutely.
the trilogy. God,
You
man,
got Mad Villainy. You got I absolutely,
I feel
absolutely.
like the 2000s get too much hate. Like for us to even leave them out the conversation, which is why I had to put them in there. But I feel like it's crazy. Granted, again, that is my childhood. So I'm obviously going to be a
You
little
you
biased.
you you made the prompt and still left them out.
The thing is, I made a whole podcast
Come on
episode.
now, come on
I made a
now.
whole podcast episode and I was talking about the 2000s and I just put that clip out, not even thinking. I just had to post something. I was just like, I need to post something. I don't have anything to post today. That's literally it. I talked about the 2000s more than that, but people don't care about that.
Mm.
You know, I'm out here scouring for something to talk about every once in a while. So when that jump crossed my screen, I was like, oh yeah.
You know how many people text? I had like my sister was all like, "Yo, who's this man talking about you?" I said, "What you talking about?" And she was like, "Who's this man talking about you saying you on crack?" I said, "Oh, I know him." Don't. I was like, "You don't have." I was like, "It's not that deep. Like, it's really not that deep." She was like, "Oh, okay." She was like, "I was about to be in the comments." I'm like, "Yeah, you don't need to do all that. Like, not nobody knows who you are either. You're just gonna be get blocked. Like, you don't need to do that." Like this the one time you want to defend me after all the stuff I've said on social media? This but yeah, I think that the conversation is never going to people are always gonna have their opinions no matter what. Like
Yeah.
people are gonna think their eras is the best. In a few years, we're gonna have little Tommy saying that 2020s is the best era.
And
And
y'all gonna be looking at him crazy.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Tommy suck.
Y'all gonna be looking a little Tommy crazy.
it just happened. I think it's a good thing though that we can do that thing. That shows like the growth of the genre.
Right.
Right.
Right of it.
Because if we can't have this conversation, like which era is the best, that means we're not growing as a genre. Just
Yeah.
we're stuck.
Yeah.
But y'all want to talk about regionalism? Because
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, speaking to that, uh to our conversation about variety. Um yeah, nah, source. Yeah. Do you want to ask some questions, Jamal, or you go or no?
you can go ahead and do it.
Yeah, source. So how do you feel about regionalism now versus then? Do you feel like we should bring back regionalism and be like try to rep the city more, or do you think it's like just cool that everyone's just doing their thing, but you got some dudes over here who sound like they from Cali. You got some, how you
I
feel?
don't even. I'm weirded out not being able to tell where somebody's from after listening to 5 songs from them. I'm like, "Duh, I'm from the world. I'm from the universe. Okay, you're from the universe. Cool. Like, what is your music? What is your music connected to? It's connected to the world. Fine. I feel like that's a thing that, and if that's what it is, that's what it is. Like, well, I can't argue it. However, when you take away uh, the bass for certain music, if you, not sound bass, but the bass, home bass for certain music or certain artists, some people are just not going to connect to it, and it may just be an age thing. It may be an age thing, but I like my New Yorkers to sound like they from New York. I don't need a New Yorker that sound like he from England. Like what are we doing? What are we doing? If I wanted to listen to a British rapper, I'll listen to a British rapper. I don't need you to sound like a British rapper. Like, and part of that might be that New York ended up having to chase trends after the South kind of took over, and Jay-Z, Fat Joe, whomever else started making music with the South because the South was hot, blah blah blah. Then it turned into a whole what we have now, what we're actually talking about. But I love regional music. I love to hear what the place sounds like. Who wants to visit a place and you know you don't know what it sounds, you don't know what it feels like. It's like watching something on TV and I don't even know. I don't even know. But I like to know. I like to know what's going on before I get there. You know.
So how'd you feel about like someone like Slick Rick when you first heard him? Because Slick Rick is from the UK, but he's also from New York. But it's weird because he has that like mixed dialect where you can hear both, like when he raps.
Right. And to this day, he still has that accent. I always ask people from New York. I'd be like, bro, you came down here from New York when you were 9. Why do you still sound like you live in Brooklyn? It's been 40 years and you still how is that even a thing? You don't even know what Brooklyn people sound like right now. But anyway, Slick Rick is different because he came to the US when he was 12. So he sounded like he sounded. And once he started, getting into music, that was something that actually made him stand out, right? It's gonna make him stand out in a bunch of New Yorkers, and when he has that accent, that's enough to be something for people to grab onto right there. But he also had the essence of New York because that's where he was. So he got a different sound, being in the essence, and them already respecting it. So it's kind of hard to compare Slick Rick, who actually moved somewhere, to somebody who still lives in Wisconsin and sound like they're from Florida. Like,
Yeah. Slick Rick sounds like where he's from. That's not
right.
even, he sounds like where he's from.
Plus, he was in a crew with the Kango crew with Dana Dane, and I don't know the Kango crew by name. I'm sorry, but he was in the crew with Dana Dane, and he's with New Yorkers, so he's gonna have that New York feel. Plus, he lived there.
I think regionalism needs to come back. I think that it's kind of, I think it's part of the growth of hip hop and one of the negative things because now you have everybody sound like they from Atlanta. Everybody. One of the main things in like the biggest battle we've seen since Jay-Z and Nas was that like you don't sound like you're from anywhere, Drake. You sound like you from everywhere. This is the West Coast sound. That's an important thing. I think it's weird when we have little white kids sounding like Gucci Man instead of sounding like where they actually from. Like I have my critiques of Eminem. Eminem sounds like where he's from. Mac Miller, he sounded like where he's from. They don't sound like um, somebody from New York or something like that. They sound like where they're from. And that's important to me. Like I will listen to you more. You got more staying power in my speakers if you like sound like where you're from. I don't want to hear somebody like ASAP Rocky. It was so hard for me to get into his music because he sounded like he was from Houston. You from New York. You know what I'm saying? Were you talking about like lean and stuff? You from New York. Like that's not your culture.
Mm.
But
that's true. I think I agree. Regionalism does need to come back stronger, but I think it's not completely gone. You just got to look, honestly, because Dochi sounds like Florida. Like she's pure, yeah, pure Florida sound. Detroit, we're still here. We still got our sound. I sent y'all that playlist. Y'all ain't really listen, but it's cool though. But it's, yeah. But yeah, nah.
you left
Detroit's
off Big Sean, so I can't respect it.
Oh my god.
Mhm.
Nah, we're not gonna start that. But yeah, I agree still.
But like living in the South, like there's so many different sounds down here. Like you have Texas, you have Georgia, Florida. Like all the sounds are starting to kind of like. I personally can separate them because I grew up here. But if I'm taking my lens off, I'm like, yeah, like everybody's starting to sound kind of bubbled down to the Atlanta sound, which is not good because the South has so many different types of people, so many different accents down here. I know people who be like, "Oh, you have a Texas accent." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I've never heard that I had a Texas accent. And then I have people in Atlanta like you have an Atlanta accent and all this stuff. So the part of regionalism is like I wish the Southern sound would come back to its individual areas because, like you said, Jamal, like everybody's starting to kind of sound like Atlanta, but the South is so big and so important in hip hop that there's no reason for that, right? Like there's no reason why you're like Travis Scott's from Mo City, Texas, Houston. I genuinely cannot tell that he's from Houston, me personally. And as
Don't.
someone who's probably listening to Travis Scott now, they're like, I didn't even know he was from Houston. Versus someone like Megan, I could tell she's more from Texas. Well, she talks about it all the time, one. And then two, she does have that like southern swang, I guess you would say, to her versus a Travis Scott. Like you wouldn't think they're from the same area, in my opinion. So it's just like I wish everybody would kind of get back to like their roots. But in terms of like the regionalism, the South is too big to not be distinguished, right? So hopefully we can get back to that at some point. But everybody got to stop sounding like they from Atlanta. Which I mean, I guess it makes sense because Atlanta is like pretty much like the mecca right now. So it's like I understand it, but it's unnecessary, and it kind of is making everything sound the same. So.
So there is regionalism. Like I'm not gonna act like it doesn't exist. But I guess on the mainstream level, do y'all ever see it going back to that? Can y'all see it going back to that? Because there's always going to be people in your city that sound like they from there.
I personally don't think it's going to go back to that, especially since trap is like the leading subgenre right now, and trap Atlanta, whatever. I feel like since that sound is so popular, that's what people are kind of chasing. So as long as like that sound is still at the top, that's the sound we're going to consistently hear in the mainstream realm. So I think maybe if trap doesn't like if trap goes down and another subgenre kind of takes over, maybe. But for right now, I don't see it happening because it sounds like everything has an 808 on it at this point. So it's gonna keep doing that because that's like the leading subgenre. So yeah.
Buster didn't help with that last album that he dropped. I know Buster's not. I know older artists are not as relevant as far as the national stage, but I felt like Buster Rhymes made an album, and his mission, which is fine if that's what you want to do, but his mission was to make a worldwide album. And I'm like, don't nobody want to hear no worldwide Buster album. Like sound like where you from? Somewhat. That joint was great. I don't know. Like I'm not saying everybody hated the album, but I don't know. I don't remember many people saying they loved it, and I feel like it was kind of watered down, for lack of a better word, just because it was trying to please the world instead of the core. But maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's where we are.
Yeah, I think that with older artists, I personally like when they sound like an older artist. So, like, I just heard Rakim's album today, like when I was doing errands, and I liked it because he didn't sound like, oh, I'm gonna get the hottest young rappers, the hottest young producers, and try to sound like this age. He sounded like Rakim on these type of old beats. He even had like rappers like Rascas was on it. Like he didn't have like Future. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to hear Rakim with Future. You know,
You don't want to hear Rakim in Future?
like no. I'll be mad at Rakim. I might DM him if he did something like that. I would DM him like, why would you do that? Even if the song is like the greatest song I've ever heard in my life, I'm still gonna hate it a little bit because I don't think that older artists need to do that thing. You know what I'm saying? You have your core. Like LL, another example, like his album didn't sound like somebody trying to um be cool, be what's hip now. I don't like when artists do that. Stay to like who you are. Yeah, yes, you can evolve, obviously, but like you don't need to change too much. And I feel like when you do that, you kind of like water down your like material too. You shouldn't relate to a 15-year-old, you know?
I kind of when I heard when I saw Sweetie on LL's album, before I heard the song, I was like, all right, I know this is gonna be a sexual song. Why is LL doing a sexual type song with this? I don't know how old he is, but
My age.
yeah. So I'm like, I don't know if this is, but the song is actually fire. The song is actually fire.
I hated that.
Shocking.
I skipped it. Skip.
Oh, that joint tough. That joint tough. 'Cause, I mean, LL is always gonna give you one of them joints, but that joint tough. She was dope. LL was spitting. It was what it was.
But yeah.
I think me personally, I mean, there's a lot of rappers who have carved out, like, who stayed to themselves and who have carved out great material at, like, middle age. But I think the Nas, King's Disease, Magic, like, saga was pretty much like the masterclass in you can be of your era and of your time, you can evolve, you can have younger people involved like Hit Boy who give you that kind of like that a little fresher newer sound. You can have younger rappers involved like ASAP Rocky, like they had the song Wave Gods together, and it can work. And that's what happened. So I think before that we had saw a little bits and pieces of that kind of work and it come together, but for us to see that on a consistent basis for like multiple albums was like something that, like, I don't know if we'll see it again anytime soon, but it was really special.
6 albums.
I like the Nas example. Even then though, Nas didn't sound like he was chasing like the new sound. Because if he was, he would have got Metro Boomin. He would have got like those type of, like, his beats were like, it was Hit Boy.
It
So
was modern.
Hit Boy knows how to. I think he brings the best out of Nas. Because my
Mm-hmm.
critique of Nas has always been like he get too cute with the beats and selection like that. And with Hit Boy, he couldn't do that. So all he had to do was rap. And that's why I think that was great. But I think if Nas would have worked with any other producer, it probably wouldn't have went
No,
well. It would have been, I don't want to say doo-doo because I don't want to associate that with Nas, but probably would have been doo-doo.
we saw what happened with Nasir, and we had wanted Nas Kanye album for a long time.
I got
We
that
saw
out.
what happened with.
I got it for free. They gave it to me for free at the record store. That's how you know it wasn't good. They was like, "Here, you want this album? You come in here all the time.
Uh,
Let me take it
So
off your hands.
you want this?" It was $7. That's what it was going for too. So just a Nas album. It tells me all I need to know right there. So
I do like when older rappers do try to involve themselves in newer rappers' music, especially if the newer rapper is referencing the older rapper. So like Rip Young by Isaiah Rashad, like the remix with Project Pack on it. That's a really good example of that because it's just like he was sampling him and then he got him on the song and it sounds great. It's a fantastic song. So I do like when they do like two of the eras come together, but it has to work though. Like you can't just kind of overdo it,
Mhm.
I guess, or do it in a sense where now the older rapper is kind of chasing that new sound. But I think that song is like a perfect example of how two different eras can come together and they still sound pretty good together without one of the other going over the top or doing
Yeah,
much too much.
that's why I like that song. That was a good example because, like, you have the older artist who's responsible for like carving that sound and influencing that sound to hip hop and around the world. Then you have that younger artist who takes that sound, evolves it, and still that includes the older artist to let people know that this is the guy who's responsible for this. So another example was the song "Come My Way" by Sabbath featuring Crazy Bone from Bone Thugs. Like that was like, who would have thought that would have happened? Like in 2022. So that was a dope thing to see.
good ass examples right there.
yeah, that was honestly, yeah, great examples.
But got anything else on that before we move on to
No, actually, that was a good that convo was a good transition, like y'all were saying about oh, so Oh, do you have? Are you able to play the video,
I'm
Jamal,
a,
or no?
I'm a, I don't know if I can. It's not on my
Not
computer.
right now. Okay, all right, that's cool. But
I,
yeah, so there was a video of a guy asking if there should be a separation for older artists. That video, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think, yeah, like we were all saying, like it's cool when we bridge the gap, when we have examples of people bridging the gap. But I don't think there needs to be, I don't think the emphasis should be on age. It should be about the sound and how those two examples are perfect examples of the evolution of the sound, or the evolution of the genre itself. Um, yeah, we have so many subgenres. Really, it's so many different pockets within hip hop, and so yeah, I don't think it should be like. I mean, adult contemporary would be cool, I guess, but it's like adult hip hop, or in a sense, but like there's still many pockets within that. So you're like, while those pockets were being developed back in the 90s, why, like someone should have been naming them during that time when it was, what I'm saying? Instead of letting Spotify get determine whatever, like, yeah. So,
The problem with just that, as far as like naming it or somebody should have been doing that prior to, is that nobody gave hip hop 50 years.
yep,
Nobody's expecting. Like they was like, what you gonna do after this? What you
right,
gonna do after you finish rapping when you're
right,
28?
right,
So for it to still be here and for people to still be able to drop music, uh, have influence and all that at 50, close to 60, years old is unexpected. Matter of fact, there's plenty of movies where the 40-year-old rapper is the joke.
Mhm.
There's plenty of TV shows that the 40-year-old rapper is the joke. I
yeah,
get it, it's probably different because they're talking about a new 40-year-old rapper, but even that is still unexpected.
right,
So trying to, think that we could have done something prior to, I mean, it's possible. But even with the idea of adult contemporary, my homie, uh, shout out to my man DJ Lonnie B, he called, like, I posted something about the adult. Well, I posted MC Light's album, a review of MC Light's album that just dropped last week. He called me after I posted it because at the beginning I said something about, like, here's an example of why we might need adult contemporary category. I don't even know if that needs to be a thing, but it was an example of that. He called me because he was like, what would it be? Like, we have the music. Like, is it a sound? Is it an age? Like, what do you think it is? And after talking to him, I realized that most of those other genres that talk about adult contemporary, soft this, light that, it's not new. It's not veteran artists making new music. It is people. It is older music that people still listen to. So it's kind of a different thing because we could say adult contemporary is 90s hip hop if you wanted to put it that way.
Mhm.
But that still doesn't leave a place for 2024 hip hop made by somebody that's older. And I think even the whole purpose of people looking for a place for veteran artists to drop new music or to at least be acknowledged is because if people if people knew it existed more, or if there was a chart that said the number one adult contemporary joint of July is Common and Pete Rock, instead of saying that Common and Pete Rock on the Billboard is number 127, they're number one in the adult contemporary field.
yeah,
Way less number, but they're still number one in that field. I think that's what some people are looking for, acknowledgement of the art and the artists that are still doing it, as opposed to trying to compete. Like some people say, compete with, why would a 52-year-old compete with a 19-year-old? Like that doesn't make any sense. Whether it does or not, it don't even matter. People want to be acknowledged one way or the
right.
Yeah. I don't think I hate the adult contemporary title
other. Oh yeah,
personally. Because I think hip hop is young enough where Like you can we creative enough to come up with it. Like, come on.
Oh,
Nobody
the name.
the
Oh,
name
my man said the exact same. He was like, dog, that sound old. It just sound old.
yeah. So because like adult contemporary sounds like washed, you washed.
Yeah.
Washed rapper made an album. This is where he goes. Like
Yeah.
I don't like that. I think that also I think that they just start respecting hip hop. Like if we just keeping it a beam, because hip hop had subgenres in the 90s.
Exactly.
I know people don't want to think that there was. It wasn't all just boom bap. Like,
Of course.
Right.
so I just don't think that they respected hip hop enough to
Exactly.
have the subgenres because they didn't think it would last this long.
Right.
Like, I know a whole bunch, like, I got uncles who like try to rap in the 90s and then like they like do other stuff now. So like they didn't think it was gonna last long. So I hate the adult contemporary though. It feels a little ageist. And hip hop already as a genre has its issues with that. So I think if you are going to put it in a category, you need to come up with a better name.
Yeah.
But I think the whole thing is it is a little weird to have like Nas competing with a Playboy Cardi. Um, but I think it's weird in other genres too, though. I just think that hip hop's just the most popular thing, and it's gonna get the lens. But it's weird when we have like an older R&B. Like if Stevie Wonder dropped an album, he'll be competing with I don't know Ari Lennox. That's weird to me too.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's a bad thing because I'm weirded out about it. Like
That's a good point.
it's
I
not a
think
bad thing.
I think it's mainly because we still have the lens of competition on hip hop. In order for you to gain that, you want it to be a subgenre or respect it. Like hip hop is 50 years in, and we're just now getting respect that we are a genre. Like we are more than just that. You still want to hold on to the base of, and that's why y'all got mad at me. I was like, nah, hip hop is not competition anymore. It's a genre. Like we are not competing to like, and that's why I said in the
So
90s, you are proving yourself. Like we are here, we're stamping, like, and that's why I appreciate the stamp of the from the 90s to say we're here, but we're not competing. You're competing against the people who are saying no, you're not a genre. That's the real competition. The
that
competition was beyond people trying to say, nah, I'm the best rapper. It's not about being the best rapper now.
Yeah.
there it is.
And it is to
I
an,
feel
it
you.
is
I
to an
feel you.
extent. It is to an extent. It is to an extent.
There's
But you
always
understand what I'm saying, where it's like if you want that subgenre of like the older artists still getting recognition, you can't have the lens of oh, but it's not fair to compete against the 19-year-old. Your hip hop's competition, right? So what do you want?
I'm not gonna lie. Um, I might edit this out, but I don't care. I don't care about getting the recognition from white people because that's really what
That's
it.
fine. No, that's fine.
That's
Yeah.
no, that's what it is though. Like
I
it's
get
like when
that.
people
I get that.
complain about the Grammys and it's getting they want the white appreciation. So I
Yeah.
don't really care about that. So
I'm with you on that, but I mean,
it's competition. Like rappers don't always want to be the best. That's
sure,
never going to go away.
sure.
So I don't think we are competing with them respecting the genre. I just think they are just as respecting the genre. I don't even say respect, acknowledging the genre.
Okay. Okay.
Um, I
Yeah.
don't think I will ever care about them respecting hip hop because frankly, if they're respecting hip hop, it's probably turned into something I don't like.
It's for the money. It's the financial difference that is causing other people's lives. Yeah.
Yeah.
But even beyond the white people, but even like the older generations, like you're saying, like people from like our parents, like of them like saying, yeah, y'all doing, disrespecting whatever the younger kids are doing, at first they didn't like jazz, and now, like that storyline in a
Yeah.
sense.
But look, you got to
But
think
yeah, I'll admit my wording was wrong though. I agree with what you're saying, Jamal. Yeah.
my mom is I mean, I'm not gonna put my mom's age out there. My mom is in her 50s. Hip hop is in its 50s.
Right. Yeah.
So there's no generation that's like we have to wait and see. You
Sure.
know, the
Sure.
hip hop is as old as my parents.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
they are the generation that was like came up with it. So like the critique that they were getting is different than what it's gonna get in the next 10,
Of
15
course.
years.
Yeah, of course.
Like when I'm an old man, because y'all call me old man.
I'll see
Then
you like,
that's
oh
when
man.
we get, whatever. Then that's when it's like the conversation gonna happen. Because right now it's young. Like the rappers are just as old as hip hop.
Yeah.
Like Jay-Z's older than hip hop.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we're just getting to a point where we're even acknowledging older rappers, period. Because
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
nobody was expecting who would expect somebody to be 57 dropping a hip hop album?
That's
Right.
Nobody thought that was gonna be a thing.
Like
But
I'm not
because
even gonna lie. Oh, you can go ahead,
wait,
sir.
I was just saying, because how would you think it was like you don't know it until you can see it. And if we're just getting to a point where artists who still want to rap are hitting that age range and they're still doing it, then who's
Mhm.
to tell them that this is not a thing?
Right. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I don't think nobody expected someone like a Pusha T, who's what 47 and still sounds like he's in his 20s, still has a lot of energy in the tank.
Yeah.
It's like who knows when his gas is gonna run out.
I didn't know he was 47.
He's up there.
I always look at Pusha T as younger than he actually is. So
He
because
is
It's the
because he
like
braids.
look
a
yeah he
crack,
looks young.
the braids and
The
black people.
brain.
What is it? The braids? Um, yeah, I think like Pusha, like what's his name? Killer Mike is like
I was
he's
just gonna say
he's
that.
thriving as he gets older. Like his career is getting better as he gets older. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I have a hard time like because hip hop is so young. I have a hard time with this conversation because I'm like the genre is young. Like, can we let it like grow a little bit before we like want to do adult contemporary? Which I hate that. I hate that. I ain't gonna.
I
We
agree
got to
with
let it grow.
I agree with like let's let the genre grow a bit more before we do something like that. But like the disrespect is already there, right? Like think about the Grammys from last year. The Travis Scott Killer Mike thing. Killer Mike wins the Grammy. Everyone's like, "Who the hell is that?" And it's just like we that's it's shame because it's just like all these people who listen to this genre can't even recognize the people who came before the Travis Scotts. So it's just like to categorize them like Killer Mike definitely deserved that Grammy. He didn't deserve any of the hate that he got, but I feel like he got a lot of that hate because a lot of people who are in the genre right now, who are currently listening to the genre, don't do their due diligence to go back to even know who Killer Mike was or what he's done for hip hop. And so I guess in terms of like the categories, like you're right, like it is kind of weird. It's like Killer Mike in this instance was competing against Travis Scott. Killer Mike is probably old enough to be Travis Scott's dad. So it's just like
Yeah.
it's kind of it's weird because now this person who's older wins the Grammy and now they're getting disrespected when the disrespect was even needed or necessary, I guess. And so in those type of spaces, I can understand more why there might be like different categories kind of like what Source said, like oh like if Common and Pete Rock got like number 157 on the Billboard, but they were number one in the specific category, that's way more recognition than people looking at it from like a standpoint of if there's 200 albums or 157 and their recognition is not as strong because they deserve recognition as well. Like Common and Pete Rock actually put out a good album this year, so it's just like they deserve that recognition as well, and they shouldn't get that recognition because they're not as young as the people who are topping the charts, like a Travis Scott or Kendrick or Drake or whoever else.
Yeah. How would I guess? How would you give them the recognition without? I mean, I know how I do it, but I'll praise them. I don't care about the age. How would the general population like give praise to a Common and a Pete Rock? Like, how can they do it? I guess.
I think that
Well,
has a lot to do with due diligence. Like I was just saying, like a lot of people most people who probably listen to hip hop are between the ages of 18 and 30, most like maybe. And a lot of those people do not go back and listen to the people who came before their favorites right now, right? So when things like this do happen, there's a bunch of disrespect that comes with it because there's ignorance there, right? Like they just don't know, or they don't care enough to go back and listen to these people. So I think the way that we can praise them is by us as a community going back to listen to people who came before the people we love now, to see the growth, to see the progression of the genre. Because to only listen to rap or hip hop that's only within the past decade, and you have such strong opinions about people who came before that, it's obvious you don't understand the significance of these people that you're disrespecting, to how we even got to this point. Because without those people, we wouldn't even be here. So it's like, I think as a general public, what we can do is go back and listen to these projects, to these older artists, to be like, hey, like I understand what they did for hip hop. I understand their influence. Because at that point, like I think people, like Source was saying, people just want to be acknowledged, right? You got, it's not like you got to say like, oh, this is my favorite album of all time. But the fact that you went back to listen and you saw the progression, I feel like the education part is already enough.
Yeah, and people like awards too. I saw that Common and Pete Rock were nominated for, I think, 2 BET awards. I was surprised, but I don't know if this is at this point you gotta look at it like, are they just doing this because of the time frame we're in right now, or do they really like? I mean, awards are awards. Like, who knows why they give awards to who they give them to?
Mm-hmm. But I have you can go ahead, sir.
You good?
But I have very, very conflicting opinions on just by myself about the whole awards thing. Because one minute I'll say, oh, like fuck them, like, oh, sorry for cursing, but F the Grammys, all this, all that, F these awards. We don't need these people approval. You don't hear those other genres saying that. When it comes to when there's people in the pop lanes or people who are in like these like specific like genres, like whenever they're acknowledged, whenever they're acknowledged properly by these institutions or whatever have you, they are receptive to those awards. They feel like they finally got that recognition. And I feel like hip hop is missing that, because I don't think that there's really been, and y'all could disagree, Source, I'd love to hear your opinion on this, that there's really a rightful institution that has given rightful awards to hip hop artists. So I think that's why rappers cling on to the Grammys, because number one, it's mainstream, it's popular, and we see the top of the top, the creme de la creme, the biggest stars in the world collecting these Grammys. And here's this rapper from Milwaukee that's looking there and being like, I'm nice. Why can't I be there? You know what I'm saying? So it's like I get why people have a detest for that, but at the same time, it's like you can't fault someone for wanting to be recognized.
Oh yeah, well, Grammys, on one hand, they're not, like you said, it's not something that's given by. It's not an award given by people who know what they're talking about a lot of times. So even when you get the acknowledgement, it's not like it's coming from the people who love you who love your product for what it is. They love your product for what it did or what somebody told them it is, and then somebody showed them, well, this is how this album affected this and this. It's not based on the actual. To me, it's not based on the actual music. I think the appreciation of being acknowledged is just that. Because, I mean, if somebody gave me a Pulitzer, I'm not what is a Pulitzer going to do for me? But if somebody said, hey, we want to give you a Pulitzer Award, okay, I appreciate it. I can appreciate it, but if I don't get it, it's not going to make a difference. To me, that's how a lot of people are with Grammys. Like, if I never see a Grammy, if I'm never nominated, it don't matter, because it's not from the people who even care about the music. But if you acknowledge it, then I'm going to be like, oh, word, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, that's why I say I have conflicting opinions on it, because my opinions change constantly on the issue. So it's interesting to hear multiple perspectives on that.
This is where we live. I'm sorry. This is where we live. This is where we live. This is where Black people live. Black people live in between a place of wanting to be appreciated by the masses and knowing that the masses are never really going to appreciate you. So
Mm-hmm.
it's where we live. It's life. Being black is a constant, and I didn't use the word until probably the last 3 years. Constant gaslighting. Life is just to black people just constant gaslighting, regardless of the topic. I'm watching, WNBA. We've all seen Caitlin Clark and that conversation. But even when even when the proof is there, there's still a million people that are going to say, well, you don't like this because it's this. No, no. I'm telling you, this is better. This is better. It is unequivocally better. And I don't know why you're not seeing it. Well, you can't say that because she's got more fans over here. So how can you say that that's better if there are more fans over here? Because that's not what it's about. It's not about how many people say it's good.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we deal with music, we're looking at Grammys. Well, how many people said it was good? Well, if the masses didn't like it, how can we give it a grant? It's conflicting, and like you said, Kendall, conflicting, and it's just constant gaslighting. It's constant gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
I see it every day. I'm on whatever app, just trying not to say, dog, why y'all like? I hate to see people keep using the word gaslighting, but every time I see somebody use it, it's legitimate. It's a real thing happening. I'm like, dog, this word is just getting worn out, but it's not even like it's a lie. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another thing I'll just add to the point I was making about the Grammys is that I think rap, a lot of times, even R&B as well, is in a very uncomfortable position because a lot of those artists, now, that are up for Grammys or, they're making Grammy Award like recognizing music. They probably grew up watching Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, getting all them Grammys awards and getting, what I'm saying, all those awards. So they're looking at that and being like, dang, like, do I gotta go pop just to get these Grammy awards? Or, why are these black artists, on the holy grail and getting all these, being recognized for an album and such, like a Thriller or whatever have you. And these artists are being like, man, I got nominated for one Grammy. You hear like Nicki or whatever be like, I got nominated for one Grammy and blah 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 all these years, and I ain't getting nominated for nothing. So, like I said, it's reasonable for them to be upset, but I think at a certain point, you are right. You do have to acknowledge that if they haven't acknowledged you by now, they probably never will.
Yeah, so weird. It's weird. I don't know. I have opinions that I can't say while we're recording, but
no, go ahead. No,
Who gonna stop you?
Do your thing.
I work in education.
You just educating the people.
I have an opinion.
Yeah.
I have an opinion on. I think the problem is we don't put enough in our own stuff. Like that's why we put so much emphasis on the Grammys. Like the BET Hip Hop Awards. I mean, it's changed over the years. Like I'm not gonna act like I'm watching it, but I'm like, we weren't watching it to begin with. Like people weren't showing up to the shows. People aren't even we don't know who won the last 5 BET awards. Like we don't put enough into our own stuff and we care so much about the Grammys, and that always bothers me. And the Grammys also, they are always late to the party when it comes to hip hop or R&B. Like, yeah, Michael Jackson won all them awards for Thriller, but he had Off the Wall.
Right.
Like,
that's true.
Kendrick won a lot of awards for To Pimp a Butterfly. He had Good Kid, Mad City. They weren't even televising hip hop until they could profit off of it. So I have an issue with it because when I see them acknowledging hip hop, all I'm seeing is them acknowledging we can make money off of this. So we're going to talk about this. We can market Travis Scott in these commercials. We can do all this. Like Killer Mike, love his music. But to see the flip that he made is crazy to me because Killer Mike, he was like anti all that stuff. The moment he wins an award, man has changed up. And that type of stuff is where I'm saying, see, we're not putting it into our own stuff. That's you win a Grammy, now you not showing up, you not talking the same way you were talking. That's why I don't really care about getting acknowledged by them. Because their acknowledgement is just profit. They don't really respect hip hop. Let's just keep it a bean. They don't respect R&B. They put Doja Cat. Doja Cat be in categories she shouldn't be in. Beyonce be in categories she shouldn't be in. Like Beyonce's a pop star. She's always going to be in the R&B category. She's never going to compete against Taylor Swift. They don't respect our genre enough to even put us in the right categories. So I just don't care about them personally.
I'm not mad at anything you said.
No, yeah.
I had to sugarcoat it because the stuff I really wanted to say, I can't say because
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead. Go ahead. Do your
it'd be the
thing.
wrong clip to go viral. The wrong clip go viral. I'm in the office. Jamal, I heard what you said. It's your last day.
Don't let them Waffle House you. Don't let them.
So do that.
Yeah.
Autumn, you good?
Yeah.
All right. We got
Autumn took a nap.
I know you was gone for a little bit, so I was
A little small. Let's just keep it at that.
But anybody have anything else they want to add?
I could live here personally, but I'm not going to.
Oh, yeah.
Kendall, Autumn.
No.
Autumn, close us out.
All right. Now that we've talked about several different hip hop topics, 90s versus 2010s, we've talked about regionalism, we've talked about putting hip hop in certain categories when it comes to award shows, when it comes to just being recognized by the public. So let us know what you guys think in the comments about any of the things that we've discussed. And this has been the Yapper Quartet featuring me, Autumn, Jamal, Will, Kendall, and our guest, Source. Thank you, everybody.